Welcome to the Week 3 Go-To session. This is the third session of 4 we're holding this month. As promised, this week's session is going to be entirely devoted to APA, walkthroughs of APA. I started grading some of the outlines today. Remember, they're not due until midnight tonight. Last week it took me, I think I've explained that we instructors aim for a 72-hour turnaround time, so that means things that are handed in Sunday at midnight try to be graded. I try to grade them by Wednesday at midnight. But sometimes it takes me an extra day. And last week, there were about 8 students who I needed to finish up on Thursday. And I was originally going to give those 8 students a one-day extension to make up for that extra day that I needed. But then I decided, why not just give it to everyone? I sent that out in an announcement. So yes, outlines are due tonight at midnight. This is Monday that we're holding the session. What did I want to say? Grading the outlines. I mean, I sort of take it easy on the APA category for grading the outlines. I think I talked about this last week, that at this stage, I want to mostly see that APA is headed in the right direction. So I don't take off massive points if there are some small issues here and there, right? I just kind of look at it and say, okay, this is mostly kind of heading in the right direction in terms of APA, or this is not heading in the right direction of APA. This is an invented system that maybe a student is using. That said, we did talk about APA last week with some care, but this week we're going to discuss it with much more care, okay? Because yes, for the essay draft, and I have our list of activities here on the screen. So right now we're in week 3. We're beginning week 3. So yes, the major activity for this week is the essay draft. Okay, we call it a draft, but a draft does not mean something that's unfinished or something that's just in okay shape. It should be your strongest possible work. Okay, this class moves fast. It's only a month long. So if we were on a 16-week semester, sure, we would have time for a draft that's maybe in rougher shape, and then you get feedback, polish it, maybe polish it again. But because things move quickly here, your essay draft should be the strongest work that you could possibly do. Plus, the stronger effort you make on the draft, hopefully the less revision there will be for week 4. Excuse me. And as you can see, week 3 follows a similar format to previous weeks. So you have smart book readings to complete, right? Those short readings plus questions, and then the weekly Achieve module. Okay, so just like every other week. If you have any questions during the session, feel free to go ahead and type your question in the chat, and I'll read it out loud and answer it. Okay. But let's move forward with APA, because for the essay draft, 20% of your grade is for APA format. And yes, I'll be expecting APA to be mostly correct, nearly perfect. Again, I don't make a big deal about tiny things so much, but yes, APA should be largely in place. So that's why I'm going to devote this entire session to APA, which I know is not the sexiest topic around, but I do think it might be one of the more useful sessions. In fact, for those people who are here attending live, feel free to open up a Microsoft Word document right now, a blank document. For those people who are watching this after the fact, you might pause the video and open up a blank Microsoft Word document, because if you wish, you can just follow right along with the steps I'm going to take. Okay, I already have a Microsoft Word document open, blank. Note that I am using Microsoft Word. You should be using Microsoft Word too. You can use a different program, but then the onus is on you to sort of figure out where the different functions are. I'm using Microsoft Word for Mac, so if you're using Microsoft Word for PC, things might be in slightly different locations, but hopefully not too much. Okay, so the first thing we're going to focus on is layout. APA can roughly be divided into 3 different categories. Layout, in other words, how the paper looks, which is what we're going to discuss first. And then citations. Actually, let me get something set up and ready for that portion. I should have had this set up already, but I want to go to Full Sail Connect and go to the library databases and have a sample article at the ready that I'm going to quote from and paraphrase from to show how in-text citations work. Okay, so I click on library, scroll down to research databases. Okay, we'll go to EBSCO host. I'm lazy, so I just ask it to search all the databases at once, all the EBSCOhost databases. EBSCOhost is an umbrella term. EBSCOhost hosts Academic Search Premier, Business Search Complete, I think it's called, and a number of other databases. They're all under the kind of EBSCOhost umbrella. There's also other databases like LexisNexis. But okay, I'm going to find that article I brought up last week called Gimme Sales. Okay. Because it's about the use of music in the Call of Duty ad. Okay, I'll actually come back to this later because I do want to begin with layout. Okay, so layout again refers to the overall look of the document. And yes, this is part of the grade. You might think, well, what's so important about the way that it looks? First of all, well, anything has standards, right? If you work for a business, you might have in-house rules you have to follow. Memorandums have their own format to follow. No matter what you work in, whether it's computer animation or music or film, etc. Again, there are going to be specific tasks you have to do that, yes, they follow a certain format. Writing has its format too. And even though this is going to be APA rules for layout, some of those general rules apply to all writing. For example, that your essay should be double spaced. That's a convention of pretty much all writing, okay? Double spacing your work. Anyway, let me repeat that first step I was kind of talking while I was doing it. We're going to start with the creation of the header, which is this top inch of the page. Okay, so we're going to create the header. And we need to put a couple things here. First, we have to put the words running head. And even I need to double check things sometimes, so I have to make sure that I'm following the format specifically. Yes, so running head. The R in running is capitalized, the H in head is not, colon, and then you put the full title of your paper. Okay, you should come up with a thoughtful, hopefully interesting title. I'm going to put just a generic title. Actually, so generic that it's not even going to be a real title. So just keep that in mind when I start typing this, okay? We're just going to call this placeholder title for English paper. Okay. Now, this next step is always a little bit frustrating because we also have to insert page numbers. Okay. And page numbers go up here in the top right. Yet whenever I do this, it loves to eliminate. Sometimes the page numbers appear, sometimes they don't. So you might have to do this step a couple times, but I'll go to insert and then page numbers. And it should automatically be set up for where I want it, the top right corner. And yes, we do want the number to show up on the first page. So I'm going to click on OK. So far, so good. So we have the words running head, our full title for our paper, whatever it is, in all caps, and a page number. Now here's where things sometimes get deleted. If I go to header and footer, okay, so we have these different tabs up here. Home, design, layout. But under the header footer tab, if we look at this sample paper, which is, by the way, from project apa.info, which I've mentioned several times in the sessions, the word running head only appears on the cover page. This is what we're building right now, by the way, the cover page. Okay. On all other pages, the word running head does not appear. In order to make sure that this difference occurs, we have to click different first page. And yeah, it loves to erase what I put. So let's type that over again. Running head, colon, placeholder title for English paper. Actually, let me copy and paste that. So if I lose it again, I don't have to completely type it up. Okay, and we're going to insert the page numbers again. Again, it's frustrating. It does this every month, and I don't know why. Show number on first page, yes. Good. And now it unclick that box. So let's try that again. Okay, now it looks like it's sticking. We'll cross our fingers, but everything looks good so far. Okay, so that's how we create the header. You just double click at the top of the page to get inside it. And this is what it should look like. Oh, there's one other thing we have to do. The entire document, okay? So right from the header, through the cover page, through the essay itself, right down to the references, we should be using one consistent font, which is Times New Roman 12-point font, okay? Now, the second thing we have to do is put some information in the middle of the page. And you can just eyeball things. So I'm going to go down to the middle of the page approximately. This information has to be centered. And we're going to type three things. Okay, the title of your paper again, but it's not going to be in all caps this time. Your name, and then the name of the university. So let's put those three things there. Okay, and again, you should come up with a real title. Oops, title for English paper. And here, as you can see, not only is it not in all caps, but I'm following kind of standard rules for capitalizing titles. All right, so major words receive capitalization. Small words like the, for, of are in lowercase. Oh, and the entire document needs to be double spaced. So let's take care of that as well. So let's change it from 1.0 to 2.0. And then your name goes here. By the way, you don't have to put your middle initial. I'm just doing that as a joke. Jane, a student, and Full Sail University. Okay, but your name goes here. So, for example, Miss Woods is with us tonight, so she would type just Candace Woods, right? Or I could put my name. And then, yeah, just eyeball things. So if I take a look, that actually looks pretty good. That never happens. But yeah, we want it in the center of the first page, the cover page, okay? And there's your cover page. Easy peasy. Now, we keep hitting enter until we get to the very first line of a brand new page. As soon as we get there, we stop. Stop. Okay. And meanwhile, while things are still centered, we type the title of our essay again. Yes, we're typing the title a lot, I know, but it's just these are APA conventions. Oops. Okay. And we're set up. Now we can start actually typing away the text of our essay. Now, we hit enter once, not 2 times, not 3 times, just once. Make sure you turn centering off. Sometimes I see students forget to do that, and their entire paper is centered, which looks kind of funky. Okay, so we want to align left. The first line of a new paragraph is always indented. 1 tab, so you hit your tab key to indent, and then you can start typing your paper, okay? So your essay goes here. Your essay goes here. I'm going to type this one more time and then copy and paste it because I want to explain a couple other things. And yes, it's important to set up double spacing before you begin typing, because once you do that, then you can keep typing away. And when you reach the end of a line, it will automatically wrap down to a new line. What happens is that occasionally I see students who keep their essay single spaced, and then kind of like in the old-fashioned days, when they get near the end of a line, kind of like you do with a typewriter, they literally hit enter, return twice. And so it kind of makes it look double spaced, but it creates problems because the program does not recognize that's what you're doing. So it loves to capitalize the first letter of a new line. You would have to change all that. It's so much easier just to set it up for double spacing. Notice after a period, there are 2 spaces. So you hit your space bar twice, 1, 2. And when you reach the end of a paragraph, so let's say this is our introduction paragraph, and let's say it ends here, you hit enter once. Not 2 times, not 3 times, just once. Indent by hitting tab, and you can keep on going. Actually, now let me copy and paste all of this to make things even faster. Because what happens is that sometimes students love to do this. They create an extra space there, they create an extra space there, because to their eyes they think it all looks smashed together, but no, it should look like this. I mean, yes, it looks a little bit awkward because you see this repetition, your essay goes here, your essay goes here, but actually let me open up the Jeep example that we've been using all month. Let me close the movie that I was watching. Okay. Right, so here's the Jeep example. I've been showing this a lot, but there's a cover page. There's the title on page 2, right? Hit enter once, it's double spaced, begin your essay. When a paragraph ends, hit enter once, begin the next paragraph. And no, to my eyes, this does not look all smashed together. We don't need extra space between paragraphs. And actually, open up a novel sometime. You don't see extra spaces between paragraphs. Again, that's just a convention. right? We hit enter once and we keep going. Okay, so let's imagine that my paper keeps going. And somewhere on page 4, your essay should be between 700 and 1400 words. 700 words is approximately, it's getting close to 3 pages. So this is near the bottom of page 4. That might be close to 700 words. But whenever your essay does end, okay, then you hit enter again until you get to the brand new line of a new page. Once you get there, stop. Stop. And on this brand new page, we center the text again, and we type the word references. Okay, it's not in bold, it's not underlined, it's not italicized, it does not have a colon after it. It just is the simple, elegant word references. By the way, that's the appeal of APA, is that it's kind of elegant in its simplicity. We're using one font. Actually, I need to fix that because the entire document should be in Times New Roman. Okay, that created some awkward elements. So let me bump this down to the new line. Okay. And yeah, we can just start building our references. We'll come back to this in a moment because right now I want to continue talking about layout a little bit. So yes, if you basically are following along with these steps, you're good. Let's see, does the cover page still look okay? Yes. Okay. Let's see, what else did I want to say? Oh, I need to fix, remember I said that technically, and listen, if you can't figure it out and the words running ahead appear on every page, that's not something I'll take off for. But yes, technically, the cover page has the words running ahead. All remaining pages do not. So on page 2, we have to get rid of this. And if you have a longish kind of title, the full title should appear here and here, unless it's like ridiculously long. But on all remaining pages, you can put a shortened version of your title. So for example, I could reduce this to, for example, that. By the way, do not call your paper placeholder title. That literally just means that obviously a real title goes here. Okay. And let's see if it sticks. Okay, good. Good. Okay, now we have it right. On the cover page, we have the word running ahead. All remaining pages, we do not. That's what we're aiming for. Again, if you can't figure that out, if you've seen, remember, we started this off and information was disappearing and I had to do some steps over again. If it gets too frustrating, yeah, don't worry too much, but this is what we're supposed to be aiming for. Okay? Does this all make sense so far? Does this look like something you can do? If you're not following along now, can you go back to the recording and follow along with these steps and reproduce what I've done? Yes, no, maybe so. Good. I took a sip from my coffee. Micah says, yep. And then he says, maybe. You can do it. It's very simple. And if you need to, the video will work perfectly because you can obviously rewind. You can go back. You can see steps over again. But yes, this is the format you're aiming for. And if you can follow this format, already you'll get, let's say it's worth 20 points. You'll get 10 points easily just for doing what I've shown here. There are citations and references, so that's why I'm saying there's, you're not going to get all 20 points for layout, but layouts, yeah, at least half the grade. Okay, but there are two other aspects, in-text citations and references. So let's begin with in-text citations, because as I explained last week, this is a little bit confusing, because first you have to determine, are you quoting directly or are you paraphrasing? Okay, paraphrasing obviously means saying things in your own words, but what you're saying comes from research. Depending on whether you're quoting directly or paraphrasing, there are two similar and yet different formats to use. On top of it all, you always have two choices for how you want to deliver that material. And because of that, yeah, is it a direct quote, is it a paraphrase? And then which of the two routes do you want to go? That confuses students sometimes, or sometimes they mix forms. So let me go over those different formats. Okay, let's start with a direct quote. So I have that article at the ready. So let's go to that. Okay, this is an article from Billboard magazine. called Gimme Sales. The Rolling Stones joined forces with a record-setting Call of Duty Black Ops video game. Okay, now obviously I would have to read this entire article to see if there's anything useful from it. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But let's say this information here. Okay, according to Activision Vice President of Music Affairs, Tim Riley, scoring Gimme Shelter for the ad was no small feat. New York-based APCO Music and Records holds the rights to the song, and, as is common with licensing negotiations, wanted to view an early edit of the ad before granting permission. So Activision flew to New York to show the clip on a secure laptop, rather than risk sending it digitally, blah, blah, blah. What's more, for the first time in Activision history, it allowed another company to make edits to the ad itself in order to obtain approval from the band members as well. Okay? So this isn't really a direct comment about the use of music in advertising, but maybe there's something here. Like, for example, maybe I think it's interesting to point out just the lengths that Activision went to get this song. Because after all, I've been saying that the music is not accident, okay? Yes, it's a rock song. Yes, it's a fairly well-known classic rock song. And sure, it's energetic and upbeat, and that's definitely a reason why it was used. But it also has thematic reasons why it was used in the Call of Duty ad. Activision could have chosen any upbeat, energetic rock song. They specifically wanted this song. So yeah, this information here kind of proves that. They badly wanted this song. Not only did they fly out to New York to get permission, but they even allowed the rights holders, APCO Music, to see an early version of the ad and to suggest edits to the ad in order to obtain approval, okay, including from the band members of the Rolling Stones. So maybe there's a way for me to incorporate that information, okay, to stress just how important music was to this ad. Now, I have two choices. I can quote directly or I can paraphrase. I'll tell you in advance, here probably this is a perfect chance to paraphrase, because be careful. Quotations over 40 words need to be put in a special format called block format. And although block format is not difficult, it's an extra step you're going to have to learn. And most of you shouldn't be using quotations that long. For example, sometimes I'll see students take this entire thing, right? This is probably over 100 words long. And that's a problem, because then so much wording is not yours that it feels like, well, A, it feels like you're just dropping in a huge chunk of text. And B, it feels like someone else is speaking for you. Plus, everything that's here is not so essential that it needs to be quoted, which is why I say ideally paraphrasing would be ideal. Because what's the gist here, right? That the Activision vice president flew out to New York to get permission to use a song. Okay, I can say that in my own words. By the way, paraphrase does mean you say things entirely in your own words. For example, you don't take this line here, that obtaining rights to the song for the ad was no small feat, and you change it to gaining rights to the song for the ad was no easy task. Okay, you're still using a lot of the same language and the same structure. You're just replacing small feat with easy task. Okay, that's not paraphrasing. That's plagiarism. So you have to find a way to say things entirely in your own words. Now, some things you can't reword any other way. For example, Tim Riley is the Vice President of Music Affairs. There's no other way to say that. So that's not plagiarism. That's just his title. Okay, but I'm going to try to paraphrase. So let's say, I don't know. In this paragraph here, let's say this is my paragraph about the Call of Duty ads use of music. Okay, and this is going to be a little bit imperfect, because obviously you should see the entire paragraph. Not only does research need to be incorporated naturally, but it has to fit within the overall paragraph. In other words, someone should be able to begin your paragraph and read all the way through the finish, including your research, without stumbling. Okay, that's how naturally it should fit in. So we're going to have to do a little bit of imagining here. But okay, let's say that I start finding my own way to say, indeed. And by the way, I'm going to make this up off the top of my head. So if wording isn't ideal, that's just because I'm literally writing on the fly. Indeed, Activision felt so strongly that the Rolling Stones song "Gimme Shelter" was important for its ad that Vice Actually, I'll just type it out. Vice President of Music Affairs, Tim Riley, flew to New York to meet with the rights holders for the song in order to obtain permission. Again, I would go back and maybe work on conciseness, but for now, let's just say that this looks and sounds great, okay? Now I'm paraphrasing. If it's a paraphrase, you really only need two things: an author's last name and the year of publication. In this case, the author's last name is Donahue, okay, and Donahue. And the year is 2010. Okay, so all we have to do is put Donahue 2010. Boom. That's it. Note, the period doesn't go here. If I do that, technically this is the end of the sentence. And we have another sentence that begins Donahue 2010. Your essay goes here. Okay, so the period always goes after the citation because that's the true end of the sentence, right? So paraphrasing is easy because you don't have to list a page or paragraph number. You just put the author's last name and year. Now, remember when I said there are always two ways to handle it? Okay, this is one way. After the information appears, you put in parentheses what's needed for a paraphrase. Author's last name is year and year. There's another option, however, which is you could mention the author's name in your actual sentence. Okay, so I could say something like, according to Ann Donahue of Billboard magazine, Activision felt blah, blah, blah. And if you choose this option to mention the author's name in your actual sentence, you immediately have to put the year in parentheses. Okay, it's just a rule. Author's name appears, immediately the date has to appear in parentheses. But then we're done. Okay, again, for a paraphrase, we don't need to point to a specific page or paragraph number. Okay, so basically we're talking about two options. One is to just put everything at the end, author's name, etc., or to mention the author's name in your sentence. And you'll be able to tell just feelingly which option is the best. Like you might ask yourself, how important is it to mention the author's name? Here, yeah, maybe it has some value because after all, this author is writing for Billboard magazine. That seems to carry some weight, right? An important music industry journal. And other times you might feel like, wow, mentioning the author's name in the sentence, that seems kind of cumbersome or it doesn't seem that important. Or if I were a reader, I wouldn't necessarily want to read the author's name. Okay, you'll have to make that decision. But both options are correct. Okay, this option or just finding your own way to state things and putting the citation after. Actually, let me highlight this so it stands out more. Okay, so that's how you handle a paraphrase. Now, let's say we're quoting directly. As I said, the information in here, I think it's ideal for a paraphrase, not a direct quote. And if you were to quote from here, I would strongly recommend just taking a small section. For example, oh gosh, maybe, I'm trying to think, this stuff here could be maybe worthy of being quoted, or maybe this stuff here at the end. And by the way, you don't even have to take a full sentence. You can even take a portion of a quote. So let me try that. Actually, let me take this portion here, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. I'm going to go back to my original. I'm going to show how to handle a direct quote. Let's see. Indeed, Activision felt so strong that the Rolling Stones song Give Me Shelter was important for its ad that Vice President of Music Affairs Tim Riley flew to New York and, quote, as is common. By the way, let me show what I did there. Okay, and, quote, now I paste in the quote. If you ever get this goofy thing where the font size and style doesn't seem to match, all you need to do is click on this little clipboard that appears and click on Match Destination Formatting. And it will change it to the font size and style that you're already working in. Now, sometimes it does other screwy things, like here I have to fix the spacing. Give me a second. No, it's all right. There we go. So you might have to mess around with it a little bit to get it looking right. Okay, so there's my end quote. Again, note that the period doesn't go here, even though that's the end of the line. Still, the end of our sentence occurs after the citation. Okay, so can you see what I did there? And we can check to make sure it reads clearly. Indeed, Activision felt so strong that the Rolling Stones song "Give Me Shelter" was important for its ad that Vice President of Music Affairs Tim Riley flew to New York and, quote, as is common with sync licensing negotiations, wanted to view an early ad. Oh, actually, that doesn't work because it's... Sorry, I'm screwing this up. Flew to New York to meet with the rights holders who wanted to view an early edit of the ad before granting permission. Okay, so that's my quote. Here, though, the last name and year isn't enough because for a direct quote, we also have to add either a page or paragraph number. Now, sometimes in EBSCO host, you'll get an actual PDF file that's just a literal photocopy of the actual pages in which the journal, okay, the article appeared in a journal and shows those actual pages, and you list the page number. Here, of course, it's just represented as a single page. So I don't have page numbers. So I have to count the paragraphs. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It's in paragraph 5. Okay, paragraph 5. That's the abbreviation for paragraph. Now, if you do have a source that has traditional page numbers, this would be the abbreviation. Okay, so let's say it's page 42. Notice that there's a space after a comma. There's a space after this period. Sometimes I see things smashed together like this. Okay, don't do that. Okay, so, and basically we're following the same. The only difference is for a quote, we need that page or paragraph number. But the same thing with the two options also applies here. I can put everything at the end, or I can find my own way to put the author's name in the sentence, right? So again, according to Anne Donahue of Billboard magazine. Oops. Can't type today. My fingers feel all fat and fumbly. Activision felt blah, blah, blah. Again, if you use the author's name in the sentence immediately after the author's name appears, year. And then at the end, you only put the remaining piece of information. Okay, so in a paraphrase, we didn't have to include this information at all. In a direct quote, does this make sense, everyone? That there are basically two options. One is to put everything at the end. The other option is to split things up. So part of the information goes in the beginning of your sentence, the author's name and year, and the final part goes at the end. Okay. Can I get some confirmation? Does this make sense, or is this like really confusing? Do people feel lost, or do they feel like if they watch this material again after the fact that they'll get the difference? Because yeah, the problem is because of all these different options, the students mix things up. So even though we have a direct quote here, let me copy all this so I can get back to it easily. Okay. Okay, so for example, okay, so this is fine, but they'll forget this. Sometimes students think, they get it in their mind, author's last name, year, that's all I need for everything. No, for a direct quote, you need a page or paragraph number. Okay, or they mix formats. So let me put that one I just copied back up here. Okay, so they'll take this version and they'll forget the year here, but they'll put it down here. And that's not correct. And remember, I'm going to type it in the chat again, but I keep mentioning projectapa.info. Okay, and I use this. I had to double check things when I was doing the layout to remember how the cover page needs to look or what order the information needs to appear in. So I don't have everything memorized. So I need to turn to resources as well. But Project APA is awesome because if you go to in-text citations and the very first option here, you get a recap of just what I've taught, that there are two formats to incorporate a quotation. can mention the author's name. And by the way, you don't have to put their full name. If you feel like it, great. Or you can just say, according to Smith, according to Newman. And as soon as that author's name appears, a year needs to appear in parentheses. Then you deliver your quotation. At the very end, you put a page or paragraph number. Okay, and they include the same note here, by the way. There is no page number. As with websites or other electronic sources, use the paragraph number. Okay, or you save everything for the end. Ditto for handling a paraphrase. Okay, you can mention the author's name. If so, immediately gets followed by a year in parentheses, and that's all that's needed. Or just find your own way to deliver the information and save everything for the end. Okay, so I've just covered it. Project APA covers it. You also had this document under the outline activity. So let me go into this real quickly. In-text citations, the concise guide. This also covers in-text citations, even more detail. And again, you get the examples of how to handle it both ways. Okay, so again, you have all, and the McGraw-Hill activity, readings as well. So you actually have APA resources coming out of your ears. You just have to choose whichever format you like most, either this lecture or the McGraw-Hill chapters or projectapa.info or the little document I just opened, and follow those examples. If you can just follow the examples, you're in good shape. Okay, Candace says Project APA is very useful. It helped me while I was doing the outline. Okay, good. Yes, that's why I keep mentioning it. Good. Micah says, why couldn't I find that article when I did this class last time? Yes, it makes sense. Okay, which article do you mean? You mean you were writing about Call of Duty last time? And you were hoping... Yeah, I think I found that just by typing Rolling Stones and Call of Duty. I mean, here I just typed Give Me Sales because I remember the actual title. But yeah, I think it was Rolling Stones. Call of Duty. Oh, and for some reason... I don't know. But anyway, that's how I got there. Actually, I need to get back there, so let me try that again. Because now we have to go over references. Call of Duty. Right? And there it is. Give me sales. Okay, so we've covered in-text citations. And by the way, this is a little bit flawed. I mean, no, the examples I'm giving are accurate. But yeah, keep in mind that there would normally be other information here, right? Your topic sentence would be the first sentence of your paragraph. Either would be your discussion. And not only do you have to naturally lead into your quotation or naturally write your paraphrase, but even then, it still needs to fit within the larger paragraph as a whole. Okay? And this week's activity is just opened, so you have 2 sample essays under the essay draft activity. One is my paper on the Jeep ad, and another one is a former student's paper on the Diet Coke ad, which isn't an option anymore for students to write about, but it used to be. And yeah, just even reading through those essays just to get a feel for what ad analysis looks and sounds like should be helpful, but also to study how did they incorporate research, or to mirror or mimic or study their usage of APA. Oh, by the way, I wanted to mention one other thing about that. Actually, I won't open it, but it was this in-text citations concise guide. It covers lots of the exceptions. So like, what happens if your source doesn't have an author? Okay. Yeah, there's a rule to handle that. You probably wouldn't mention the author's name because there is no author. But let's pretend this article has no author. Okay. Then you take the first 2 to 3 words of the article title, put it in quotation marks. In this case, there's only 2 words, so give me sales, 2010. Okay, you follow the same rules, except because there's no author, yeah, you put the first 2 or 3 words of the article title in quotation marks. What if there's no date? Then you use the abbreviation ND. And notice they're all separated by commas. The comma goes inside the quotation marks. The comma goes after the period in the abbreviation. Okay. So yeah, that concise guide to in-text citations, that was one of your assets for the outline activity. It covers all these things. Like, what do you do if there's no author? What do you do if there's no date? Okay. And Project APA covers it too. So does the McGraw-Hill readings. and so on. Okay. Micah says yes, but every time he used the library database, he got 0 results. I was just responding to someone earlier about this, and I've mentioned in the previous sessions that research takes time. Again, where's my Jeep example? There it is. Okay, so I have 6 sources, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I didn't use the week 1 video on pathos, logos, and ethos and advertising. Remember, that can be one of your 3 sources. So you really only have to find 2, because one's been provided for you. Again, to repeat, I recommend that you find something truly interesting that connects with what you're saying in that video on pathos, logos, and ethos and advertising. Don't just generically define pathos as the appeal to emotion. That's a definition. That's not really research. There must be other information in the video that's more interesting than that, a definition. But yeah, all you have to do is find something that connects with what you're saying. And you got one of your 3 sources. You just have to find 2 others. But I think I mentioned last week that it took me hours, 4 hours maybe, to find all 6 of these sources. Okay. And part of working with the library database is playing around. You're not going to get results as easily as I did. Obviously, I know that article. I find it every month. I know how to find it. But initially, you have to be as broad-minded as possible. Obviously, if you just literally type in a search for, I don't know, Call of Duty use of music in advertising, you might not get great results. But try to open your mind and come up with as many different search terms as possible. One thing I recommend is kind of anticipating what you want to find. In this case, for the Jeep ad, I sort of knew everything I wanted to say. My analysis, I'm not saying that I could have written the analysis without research. Research always helps because it supports what you have to say. It gives your paper ethos, that appeal to trust or credibility, because when you quote others who help support your points, that makes your point stronger. But yeah, I felt confident I could write the Jeep ad analysis. So I sort of knew what I wanted to find. I knew I wanted to find comments about color. I knew that I wanted to find an interesting factoid about Jeep and its influence. I knew I wanted to find something about Jeep and how it's thought of as an automobile that's versatile, okay, that's known for its versatility, because that was one of my analysis points. So that's another trick, is that if you sort of know what you want to look for, then do dedicated searches to find that information. Right. So if you already know that the song is by the Rolling Stones and it's called Gimme Shelter, then just skip the stuff about music and advertising and just do a search for Rolling Stones and Call of Duty and see what comes up. Yeah, Micah, who knows? Maybe last time the sites were under maintenance, or every so often, I don't know, if you don't have a clean login, you'll get an error or something like that. That possibly could have happened. And remember, you should have one source from the library database, and the other source can come from online. So it's really just about finding one source in the database. And again, the video has been given for you, and you could just Google something, again, something that's trustworthy, that's quality. In my case here, I think I have 2 from the library database, and the rest come from online. Okay. Let's talk about references. This is a bit easier, because as I showed last week, I have no problem with you using the citation tool. This only exists through the library database, by the way. I mean, there are citation generators online, but if you click on Cite, it gives you the APA reference. But you have to fix things. The citation generator loves to make errors. For example, author's name should not be in all caps. Also, and I think I mentioned this last week, article titles follow the special capitalization rules in APA. You capitalize just as you would a regular sentence. But yes, we can take the APA reference. We just have to fix everything. So let's go to our references page. Remember, we had it all set up? Because I added some text, it got bumped down. So let me move this to the very tippy top of the page where it belongs. Center it. Hit enter one time. We begin at the left. And now I can paste in my reference. That looks funky, so I'm going to click on my clipboard. So it matched destination formatting. Boom. Now I fix everything. This should not be in all caps. The S in sales needs to be lowercase. This is all right. After the article title, you should have an italicized publication or website name. This stuff, which is volume, issue, page number, is always a little bit confusing, so it's nice when the citation generator does that for you. And all you have to do is put the words retrieved from. And you have two options, okay? So if you either way you do it, I don't care. You're not going to lose points. Project APA teaches you to just put the name of the database, okay? And to find that, you go to your article. Sorry, I'm clicking all over the place. Okay, in this case, it came from Business Source Complete. But this is not APA, so don't take this reference. You need the APA reference. Or we can go back to the actual article itself. Right, and it tells us the name of the database. So you can either type retrieve from Business Source Complete. Okay. Let's see, am I doing that right? Let me double check. Yes, okay. By the way, EBSCOhost has several sources. One's called Academic Search Complete. One is called Business Source Complete. That's why it's important to know. You don't just type retrieve from EBSCOhost, because that's like typing retrieve from Google. Okay, EBSCOhost is not the name of the actual database. Okay, so you can type that, or you can provide me with a permalink. On the right here, underneath the citation tool, is this little chain link looking symbol. That's the permalink. Or you can give me the permalink. Don't give me both, okay? Choose one or the other. Now, indenting is different on the references page. With paragraphs, you indent the first line of a new paragraph. All the other lines are not indented. For references, it's the opposite. The first line is not indented, but all other lines are. So this line needs to be indented. So I'm going to drag this little arrow here, half a space or half an inch, and we're good. Actually, I do not want that to be... Oh, I hate it when this happens. Now I got the wheel of death. You're going to see it's not going to disappear until I shut up. Okay, give me a second. Okay, I have to close this down and open it again. Force quit. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, good. I didn't lose that much. So let's try that again. Okay, so drag that guy over. Oh, man, why does it keep happening? You know what? Maybe I should just stop trying to get rid of the... I'm trying to get rid of the highlighting of the actual URL. Let's try this one more time. Oh, and I didn't save it. Well, let's see. Is there something else I can open? You know what? We'll just do this on the fly, okay? We'll pretend this is the references page. We'll get everything set up again. Times New Roman 12. We'll double space. We'll put in our reference. We'll grab our site. We'll grab our full reference. I apologize for this, guys. Let me fix all this stuff. Okay. Drag this forward. Oops, too far. And this time I won't go back. We'll just Okay, now let me just show one more example. Let's see, Call of Duty, Black Ops article. I'm just going to grab something at random because I want to show just how easily, yes, Candace, I was trying to remove the hyperlink. I'm just trying to find any article whatsoever, just so I can show you how easy it is to create a reference on your own, even if you don't have a citation generator. Okay, even though it's not about Black Ops 3, let's just take this article, okay? Again, the actual article isn't important. The format is what we're talking about. So let's say you find something interesting online. We have everything we need: an author's name, a date, and a title. Okay, so we can just create on our own. So the rule is last name, first initial. So that guy's name was Thier, Dave. No, I don't want that fixed. The date. Now for things like websites, you should produce a fuller date. Okay, not just a year, but an actual year plus the specific date. Again, if you don't do that, I'm not really going to take points off. But the reason is because website stuff or newspapers tend to be published very, very frequently. So knowing the specific date makes it easier to find. Whereas a journal that's, let's say, published every month or every 3 or 4 times a year, yeah, the specific date is less important than the year. Okay, but I'll try to do this the right way. And what's the date? 2015, November 2nd. So 2015, and we typed the full month, not an abbreviation. What was it? November 2nd. Okay. Period. Period. It comes after every major piece. So the author's last name, period, date, period. Then the title, and we can just copy the title and then fix the formatting once it gets in there by clicking on the clipboard, match destination formatting. Okay. And then we need that retrieve from line. And notice, because we've already kind of set up indenting on the first one, it automatically indents properly for all the remaining ones. So that's nice. And for here, we just need the URL. Okay, there is no permalink for a general website. And boom, that's how easy it is. Actually, I think I can get rid of the hyperlink just by right-clicking on it, maybe. Hyperlink, remove hyperlink. Okay, there we go. So there. We forgot one other thing. After the article title, yeah, we need the name of the publication or website. So this is Forbes. And it should be italicized. Period. And then remember what I said? We capitalize source titles just as we would a regular sentence. So all this is lowercase. That's an odd thing about APA that students often forget about because you're so used to capitalizing major words in titles. APA is the opposite. Now we will keep this capitalized though. Any thoughts why? I'm not going to put all this in lowercase. Okay, I'm going to tell you that this is correct. Anyway, I've created 2 references, okay? One using the citation generator, one that I just built all by myself. Yes, Micah, good. It's the name of a game. For example, let's say the word, why you should be excited this Thursday about Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Yes, we would keep Thursday capitalized because it would be capitalized normally. Okay, again, we follow capitalization rules just as we would with normal sentences. But it's that simple. Okay, and if you do have any exceptions, again, the McGraw-Hill stuff, the Project APA, like what do you do if there's no author? Then you don't begin with the author's name. You begin with the title, followed by the date, followed by the publication name, and so on. Okay? What if there's no date? We use the abbreviation N period D period for no date. Okay? So kind of the same rules that govern. But let me get this back to the way it's supposed to look. All right? So if you can follow these steps, it's pretty simple. As a matter of fact, I think even online sources are just as easy as using the citation generator because there's nothing to fix because you're building it on your own. Right? Author's last name, first initial, date, name of the article, name of the publication or website, or retrieve from line. That's it. Easy peasy. If you can bear with me for 2 seconds, I do want to cover one final thing. Okay? Oh, I hate it when it does. I really hate that. I don't want the hyperlink. There we go. This is for the text of your paper, okay? The special capitalization rules for source titles, that only applies to the references page. Another confusion about APA. If you do use a title of anything in the text of your paper, yeah, you follow the standard rules. So, if you mention the article, gimme sales, in your actual paper, you would capitalize major words, okay? Those special capitalization rules only apply to the references page. But when do you italicize things and when do you put things in quotation marks? So let me just cover that real quickly and then I'll close out the session. It's best if we think of whole things or whole parts and how should I explain it? Individual parts of those wholes. Okay, now that doesn't make sense. It will in just a second. Whole things, or actually big things. So that would include books, magazines, newspapers, films, video games, television shows, CDs or albums, and so on, okay, etc. These get italicized. But smaller things that are typically parts of these bigger things. So, for example, a short story. Now, a collection of short stories would be italicized because that's a book. But individual short stories, no. Or poems, songs, television episodes, articles, essays, okay, etc. So smaller things get placed in quotation marks. So, for example, the Taylor Swift song "Shake It Off," okay, we're putting that in quotation marks because that's a smaller thing. It's an individual song. Is from her album 1989, italicized. Okay, the big thing, the entire album is italicized. The individual thing from that album, quotation marks. I use Taylor Swift because I love Taylor Swift. I worship at the altar of Taylor Swift. Or my favorite, Star Trek, The Next Generation episode is The Inner Light. I can't remember if it's The Inner Light or just Inner Light. Okay, so the smaller thing, the individual thing, the episode is placed in quotation marks. The name of the show, the big thing, is placed in italics. Does this make sense? J.D. Salinger's short story, A Perfect Day for Banana Fish, is from his collection 9 Stories. So, I mean, it's rare that you'll be mentioning the article name in your paper, but you might mention the name of, I don't know, the video game. And yeah, technically that should be italicized. Okay? But yeah, if I remember when I was typing Ann Donahue of Billboard magazine, did you notice I put Billboard in italics? Okay, there's a reason. Billboard is a magazine. But if I were to say Ann Donahue, 2010, in her article, Gimme Sales, published in Billboard magazine, writes, and then I don't know, present my quotation or whatever. Now, normally, I wouldn't suggest giving all this information. I don't think the reader needs that much, right? The name of the article. I mean, at most, yeah, Ann Donahue of Billboard magazine writes. Okay. But yes, if the article name were to appear, it would appear in quotation marks. Okay. And those special capitalization rules, they don't apply if it appears in your text. Okay, just the references page. Anyway, yeah, I wanted to cover that because if you can just keep that in mind, big things get italicized. The smaller things get placed in quotation marks. You will never ever forget which way you're supposed to go. Italicized quotation marks. By the way, bolding is never an option. It's just italics or quotation marks. Anyway, questions, comments about APA, anything that we've discussed. We've covered layouts, in-text citations, and references. I think if you follow along with the steps in this lecture, you should be fine. But let's say this isn't your style. You don't like walkthrough videos, or I don't know, the sound of my voice puts you to sleep. Then choose a different option. Okay. Again, you have the McGraw-Hill readings. You have projectapa.info. You have that downloadable asset, specifically on in-text citations. I feel like I'm missing something else that covers APA. But yeah, you have APA all over the place. Oh, you have the sample essays that show APA in its correct format. So you could also look at that. Imitate, model, because that's really all it's about. It's following the models, following the examples. That's it. Okay, for people who don't have questions, you're allowed to go enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much for attending. I'm going to hang out for a few minutes to ask questions that people might have. Okay, and to finish my coffee that I've barely sipped from. It's probably ice cold now. Whew. Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Usually I like to keep it rolling in case anybody asks a pertinent question that would help the people watch us after the fact, but a bunch of people just left the room. And unless someone's typing away furiously right now, the questions don't seem to be coming. So I am going to stop the recording now.